So welcome to Stronger Together, Building Collective Efficacy. As we get started, y'all know I always talk a lot about the numbers. And one number that grabbed my attention when it came to collective efficacy was its impact size. So the average effect of anything that we do in the classroom based on John Hattie's visible learning research is 0.4. So anything we have is a 0.4 effect size that we do in the classroom. Anything above 0.6 is seen as high impact. Collective efficacy has a 1.5 effect size. So that is nearly 4 times the size of the average effect size. So that caught my attention, and ways that we could use collective efficacy in our work to improve student outcomes. So today we're going to explore that. So right off the bat, I'm going to pop up a poll. So you're going to see a poll pop up on your screen in just a moment. Might be over where the chat is. And it's going to ask you, how confident is your teaching team in its ability to influence student achievement? So you're going to have numbers 1 through 5 to select. 1 is not confident at all, and 5 is your teaching team is extremely confident in its ability to influence student achievement. Where do you fall on the number chart from 1 to 5 in your confidence? Let's see how we're doing. So it looks like about 70%, 2/3 maybe, is around a 4. The next majority is a 3. Several are out of 5. And I guess I can say, luckily, no one is a 1 or a 2 coming in. So 3.8 is our average on the confidence. So let's look at that. So we're going to keep that in mind, our ability to influence student achievement as we go throughout today. So here's kind of our basic agenda. We're going to define the collective efficacy. We're going to look at some key principles, or I like to say the 4 key components. And then we're going to find one actionable strategy that we can take back to our work. All right, so grab a pen. You have a pen, something to write with. Maybe you're opening a sticky note on your laptop or in a new browser window. Write this sentence stem and then complete it. You do not have to share this in the chat, but you're going to write the sentence, I think teacher efficacy is, and then you're going to fill in the blank. Now, if you would like to share in the chat, I'm always open to you sharing in the chat your responses. Just don't feel the need to. So I'll give you a couple of seconds to write that sentence stem and then write what you believe it is. All right, so you've had just a moment to complete that sentence stem. I think teacher efficacy is, and I appreciate Bob and some others who are sharing in the chat our ability to influence student achievement. Awesome, thanks for sharing. We're going to keep going now. We're going to come back to this at the very end, so keep this sticky note or piece of paper handy, and we'll return to it at the very end of today. All right, so what is this whole teacher efficacy, collective efficacy that we talk about, right? What we know is it's more than just our individual confidence, right? It's this combined belief among all of the staff, the faculty, that through collaborative efforts, through working together, we can and we will make some type of meaningful difference in student learning. Now, I don't know if you knew this, because I don't think I really understood collective efficacy, so I started putting this together and doing a little bit more research. But it is grounded in the work of Bandura and his work on group efficacy, which has been reinforced through John Hattie's research and findings on student achievement. So we know that this term collective is key. It's not an individual that moves the needle. It's us as a group that can move the needle in student learning and achievement. So why does this matter, right? So this collective teacher efficacy has consistently been identified as one of the most powerful influences on student achievement, exceeding the impact of many traditional variables or influences. So we have to use this moment to really reinforce why we believe that this is not just the soft work or some theoretical work, but it is highly evidence-based. Collective teacher efficacy really strengthens collaboration. We know it can accelerate learning gains and also contribute to a culture where we as educators feel empowered and our students are benefiting from that consistent aligned support. So here's our first scenario. So let's look at this and how it actually might play out. So let's pretend we have a welding program. And we, as the welding faculty, have noticed that our first-year students are consistently underperforming in those MIG welding assessments. So instead of assigning the blame, we're going to come together as an instructional team and we're going to meet to analyze student performance and the data from the last 3 cohorts. Then as a group, we're going to collectively kind of revise the skill progression chart. We're going to update the lab safety checklist, and we're going to share the responsibility for creating new demonstrations and mini lessons. This team is also going to set a goal that all students will achieve competency by week 6 with additional open lab supports made available. Okay, you got that? Now we're going to put it into play. So a few weeks ago, I tried the whiteboard and my computer for some reason would not share the whiteboard. So cross your fingers that it shares again. We're going to take this scenario to the whiteboard. And on the whiteboard, you're going to find some columns similar to the ones you see on the screen. You're going to find 3 columns. We're going to have one that's called evidence of collaboration, evidence of shared responsibility, and high expectations. And in each of those columns, you're going to find some sticky notes. On the sticky notes, you're going to find examples of that column's title that we can add to the sticky note. So as you can see on the screen, there's going to be a pencil where you can edit the text when you click on it. You can change some of the text features. I'll show you a few more things when we jump in there. So without further ado, cross your fingers and let's see if we can hop over to the whiteboard and that it will share. There we go. So on the whiteboard, you'll notice several things. We have our sticky notes. You should be able to have your sticky notes. I see Mark in there. That's great. I also have our scenario rewritten right here on the left for you. You're going to want to click the sticky note, the arrow, and then click the sticky note, and then you can enter text by clicking the pen and typing. So from our scenario, where do you see examples of collaboration? Where do you see examples of shared responsibility or high expectations from this scenario? I'll give you just a couple of minutes to find the sticky note, click on it, and type in your example of that activity. I'm going to enlarge my screen just a bit. And so once you're in there, you should have the ability to click around. And the whiteboard is still loading. Thank you, Kelly, Kara, for letting me know that. As soon as it lets you in there, feel free to jump on in. Thank you, Antonia. I see some people are jumping in and some people are still waiting for it to load. So I see a couple of people, some arrows are running around in there. So when you have the ability, jump on in there and share with us some places that you have found that this team is collaborating in the scenario, some places that share responsibility or high expectations. And if yours is still loading like mine was the last time I tried to use this, feel free to go into the chat and just share with us high expectations dash your example or collaboration dash your example, and we can transfer those to the sticky notes for you as well. So that even if the whiteboard's not loading for you right now or is still loading, feel free to jump in the chat and share with us examples of collaboration, high expectations, or some of that shared responsibility. I'll give you just a moment or two to do that in the chat or on the whiteboard. And if your whiteboard is still loading, you might have to go back and click on the chat button at the top. All right, so if it's still loading, that's okay. You can also participate via the chat. Sometimes tech works and sometimes it doesn't. So just a moment to share where you see collaboration or shared responsibility or high expectations. There's some coming in the chat. There's a couple coming in on sticky notes. Okay, thanks for the feedback. So in that case, we can just utilize the chat. That is okay. So Bob's talked in there with larger classes, multiple instructors presenting and playing off one another and at the same time modeling collaboration. Perfect. It's also, you're seeing like multiple instructors coming together. That's definitely evidence of collaboration, that teaching team. So whether it's instructors and someone from like the support or study support center coming together. What else are we seeing from reading? I'm trying to read some of the sticky notes too. Like some things about high expectations, right? So setting the goal for this scenario to achieve competency by week 6. Absolutely. Tim's talking about developing some of those support lessons. Michael's talking about like the weekly meetings to come up with the strategies, right? So in this scenario, we're seeing that this team is coming together and coming up with strategies to help students be successful in this welding scenario. We're talking about like evidence of shared responsibility. They're coming up with shared demonstrations and examples. Bob's also talking about, or it can be an instructor or an advanced student working together to deliver instruction. Absolutely. Damien's talking about what is PD? Professional development, most likely, or professional learning. Absolutely. All right, I'm going to go back to my slide presentation for just a moment. There's still some things coming into the chat. Keep sharing from this scenario that you see on the screen. Where do we have opportunities of collaboration, shared responsibility, or high expectations? Yeah, Kara's talking about small groups. Absolutely, to work on CFAs, course maps, getting feedback from the group, right? So that we've seen opportunities of collaboration, shared responsibility, and high expectations. Are you picking up on some keywords now? All right, so let's talk about some components. So a lot of times we think, maybe I thought this collective efficacy was some kind of theory, right? But it's really built on some more deliberate behaviors. And this really helped ground it for me in the work that I do every day. Whether I'm teaching, coaching, working with team members, it really grounded this belief for me. And we can point out that there are kind of 4 main components we're going to look at today. So the shared belief, the collaboration, the data-informed practice, and then persistence. All right, so let's talk about this idea of shared belief, right? This is the foundation of collective efficacy. And it's not just about some positive feeling, it's really evidence-based conviction that when we come together, we can really influence our students' outcomes. Like I said, also, it was kind of shocking to me thinking about this work being grounded in Bandura's work as well, so that it is grounded in research. It's not just some opinion or idea. So as we go through these 4 components, if there's words or phrases that stick out to you on the screen, please feel free to drop them in the chat, right? Because we're here to learn with and from each other through some of these research-backed teaching practices through these webinars. And Michael points out exactly a lot of growth mindset keywords right there, right? You're seeing a lot of growth mindset keywords, definitely a theme popping out to you. Let's look at collaboration, right? This is where we really emphasize that collaboration in those high efficacy cultures is incredibly intentional, right? When we take the time to understand each other's work and align our instructional practices, we can build trust, consistency, and a real sense of unity. And when we're aligned like that, when we're all kind of pulling in the same direction or working in the same direction, we're able to respond to our students' needs and much more effectively. So strong collective efficacy doesn't just happen by chance, right? We can think that it grows when we make our work visible, when we share openly, and when we collaborate with purpose. So I'm also seeing some other words from Brandy pop in, like unified belief is another common theme you're seeing here. Absolutely. All right, the third component, right? Data-informed practice. right? It's not, I don't want to just highlight that data is something that we use for accountability, right? It's really a catalyst for us for collective improvement. So when we look at the data together in our teams, those that we work with, we can see that our actions actually lead to some type of measurable gain. It's going to strengthen our belief that what we're doing really matters. It's going, the more regularly that we use this data, the more precise and aligned our practices can actually become. It fuels our confidence as a team, not just as individual instructors, but as a teaching team or instructional team. And it reinforces ideas that we have the ability to positively impact student achievement. So any words or themes that pop out to you about data-informed practice, drop them in the chat. And let's look at this last one. Persistence and collective action. I sometimes just call this persistence. We know that high efficacy teams don't give up on a strategy the moment that things get challenging, right? We adjust that strategy, we support one another, and we keep moving forward until we see the progress. So, and leadership plays a huge role here, right? When our leaders help remove those barriers and reinforce those high expectations, it gives us as a teaching or instructional team the momentum that we need to stay focused and keep pushing forward to student success. And this steady collective persistence is what turns strong intentions into those meaningful changes that we want to see. Also seeing things, Bob's talking about things that get measured, get done, absolutely. All right, so we just covered the 4 areas of collective efficacy, thinking about collaboration, shared belief, thinking about data-informed decisions, persistence. What is one practice that your team already uses to boost this collective efficacy? I'm going to go back in the chat to get the chat started, but things that I have seen in the chat talk about having those meetings to come up with strategies. That's one practice that you're using. What other practices are you using to boost collective efficacy? This may be one area of teaching that we don't talk about it like this, and it's just things that we feel like we do every day. But when we apply the research to it, we find out that we're already doing really great research-informed things in our classrooms. Yeah, Tim's talking about data is always used to build our goals or objectives, right? So making those data-informed decisions, data-informed practices, absolutely. And don't forget, there's no wrong answers in professional learning. We're just all here to learn with and from each other. Dalton's talking about we do student instructor critiques to see what students see. Oh, nice. So you get a different perspective. Tim's also talking about team building among staff, having a voice at the table of decision making, right? So that you can pull the data to help make those decisions. You can build that shared belief. Absolutely, Tim. Kara's talking about keeping notes each week in our small PD groups. Then we cross-reference the objectives and goals and make sure we have benchmarks for those goals. Absolutely. So using collaboration, using those data-informed practices to make sure everyone's aligned in this collective efficacy. Bob's also talking about measuring the effect of collective efficacy strategies on the achievement of students, right? So using these strategies, and are we creating those goals and being able to measure them, and are students having success because of that? That's the goal, right? It's all about the students are the end game. I'll give you just a couple more seconds to see if anything else pops up in there. This is definitely one of those harder to talk about teaching areas. So when we talk about things like feedback, like last time, it's pretty easy to talk about. This takes a little bit more intentionality. All right, so let's grab that sheet from the beginning where I said, write the sentence stem down and complete the sentence where I think this collective efficacy is, and you finish the sentence. So now after we've talked about these 4 key components, we've talked about some actual strategies that you can use, like keeping notes in those meetings, like having student instructor critiques, like team building, like aligning our work. Now, finish the sentence. Now I think collective efficacy is, and then fill in the blank on that paper so that you have two sentences. I think collective efficacy is this, but now after 20-ish minutes, I think collective efficacy is, and fill in the blank. Yeah, Garrett, I totally see your chat there. We're here to develop our students and not demolish them. Absolutely. All right, so now you should have two sentences, which you thought about teacher or collective efficacy 21 minutes ago. And then what you think about it now, since we kind of defined teacher efficacy, and then we looked at it from 4 different key components. Yeah, Bob popped in there, says a lot more than I thought about 20 minutes, right? It's one of those topics that you don't really think about until you think about it. Absolutely. All right. If you have other chats, other ideas, feel free to drop in the chat. I'm going to keep going. We have a few more slides to get through. All right. So as we kind of start to wrap up and kind of put a nice big bow on teacher collective efficacy, here's a clear takeaway for today. This collective efficacy really grows when we work intentionally together. When we use that evidence to guide what we do, and when we hold a shared belief that our actions can actually be meaningful and make a meaningful difference in our students. So before we disconnect today, I'm going to invite you to make one commitment to one practice that you're going to take this week. Something small and doable. You don't have to share it in the chat unless you just want to. That you're going to do and take away with you. So you can put in the chat if you want. Otherwise, just note it on that sheet where you have, now I think collective efficacy is, just note your one doable action this week. Then we think about those individual commitments that we're all making on this screen. When taking across all of the teams that we work with, we are going to be able to build that real collective momentum in our teaching teams. Yeah, Brandy, thanks so much for sharing. Talking about being intentional with team communications. Absolutely. So not just like that shared belief that we can do all this together, but like that collaboration and being intentional about the collaboration so that we're all on the same page. We're looking at the same goals and objectives. Absolutely. All right. So now that you have what you thought about this before, what you thought about it now, you have 4 actionable strategies. We define collective advocacy. You have one strategy that you can take forward. You have written it down to make a commitment to try that one. We have covered all 3 of our really small learning outcomes, or I would call them objectives today, around this idea of stronger and better together with this collective efficacy. So if you've been paying attention or put this together, every month we're looking at some research influence from John Hattie's research around visible learning. So last month we looked at feedback. Today we looked at this idea of collective efficacy. Next month, we're going to look at this idea of metacognition. So this is all about helping our students become their own teachers by developing the skills to plan, to monitor, and to evaluate their learning. So in this session, we're going to look at some really practical, easy implementation strategies like think alouds, some reflection routines, and some goal setting ideas that can help our students deepen their awareness of their thinking and kind of help them build that true independence and self-regulation. So if you want to join us next month, which will be on April the 7th, you can scan that QR code using the phone on your the camera app on your phone. It will also be sent out in an email in a couple of weeks. We would love to have you join us for that session so that we can keep looking at what we're doing in the classroom that's backed by research and making sure that you put in all of your evaluations for work, that all the work that you're doing is backed by research and you have a place to note all of that. Also in this one, in the chat, you'll also notice a share button at the top. In that shared, you're going to find the PowerPoint. You're going to find the recording shortly. You're going to find a couple of links or documents that are all about teacher efficacy so that you can dive deeper into that topic. And you're also going to find a certificate of attendance that has the title, 30-minute webinar, and the date that you can add your name to. All of that will be in the follow-up email or will be found under the shared tab in this webinar. So share with your friends that as well in case they're not sure. I've got a few emails about certificates, and yes, we offer certificate of attendance because we value your time and want to make sure that we are not only building your teaching practices, but you're getting credit for that. So with that, I'm going to say thanks for joining us. You can also scan this QR code because we always love to make things better here at GW. We love these short, fast 30-minute webinars, just enough to squeeze into your day to help you build your toolbox and to provide support because you're realizing people around the country are doing just what you're doing by sharing our ideas. And I hope you have a really great month of March. And I can't wait to see you back here on April 7th. Take care, y'all.